afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Friday with Fran. I am one of the hosts. I am not Fran. I am
You're
Shelly
not?
Kino, and this is Fran. And
Hello.
we are both so glad that you are here. Please be sure, if you are joining us, to let us know that you're here with a hashtag live. And if you watch this in a replay, let us know by saying hashtag replay. Um, and please be sure to comment. We love it, and the hour goes so much better, and it's, I think, more fulfilling when you that are joining us ask your questions or comment things. And so please be sure, if we say something that triggers a thought, that you put that thought down and share it with us, because we don't want to be the only ones talking all the time. Right,
Yes,
Fran?
for sure.
So, Fran, it looks like you have Cooper in your lap again today.
Yes, he is
Yeah.
sitting.
Yeah, he's cold. It's cold here in Southern
Yeah,
Illinois again. Winter is not ready to let go, it doesn't seem.
apparently not, because I was dressed for warmer, and I had to go digging in the closet. I'm like, I'm cold.
Yeah, but next week you're going to be someplace warm.
Yes, I am. I'm going to be south,
Yeah,
and it's
in the
supposed to.
nice.
Packing my bag, I had to put summer clothes in there.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Yes.
How
Hi,
are you,
Alex.
Alex? We're glad that you have joined us. Hey, Mom. How are you? Oh, you're so sweet.
You are too kind.
Now, so Mom, I want you to notice how Fran and I took your compliment and we believed it. Now, I'm going to tell you that you are beautiful, Mom, and you need to receive that and believe it. I've been
Oh
having
yes.
this discussion with my mom
Oh
lately,
okay.
because she does not think she's beautiful, and it doesn't matter how many people tell her she doesn't believe them.
And you know what's interesting? I've never met your mom, but I've interacted with her through Friday with Fran, and I
Uh-huh.
think she's beautiful on the inside.
And that's what she'll accept, is that she's beautiful on the inside, but it's on the outside that she
Oh,
has a
okay.
little bit
Well, I've
tougher
never
time
met her.
accepting.
I'll have to meet her one day,
Yes,
and
you
then
will.
then I can tell her she's beautiful on the outside that matches her beautiful on the inside.
Absolutely. She tells me I'm beautiful, and I get my looks from her. So, I mean, ergo, she has to be beautiful, right?
Very true. Very true. So, Shelley.
So, yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I
You,
was, just go ahead.
our usual. So, what we're going to talk about
Uh huh.
uh, happened today, and um, I was not really sure, and you came up with something. So
What? Did you say something? I didn't hear you.
I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
So why did you want to talk about being heard?
Well, because right now in a lot of school districts across the country, it's IEP season. And IEP, for anyone who's watching that doesn't know, I'm a former special education teacher and I'm an education consultant now. And the IEP is the individualized education program. It's that document that drives special education. And around this time of the year, a lot of schools will hold their once a year minimum amount of times to have a meeting. And a lot of the parents I hear, now that I'm an education consultant, they don't feel that they're heard at these meetings. They don't feel that
Mhm.
their voice matters. And that should not be the case. And the law allows and is very explicit in the point that parents are equal members of the team. So if your voice isn't being heard, how can you be an equal member of a team?
True. You can't.
So, for anyone joining who's not been with us before, Fran is the parent of now two adults with disabilities. So, Fran, when you were going through the school systems with both kiddos, did you feel that you were heard?
Hmm. With my son, yes, for the most part, and there were a few no's. With my daughter, no for the most part, and a few yeses.
Why do you think the differences?
Um, well, my son has an obvious unique need. He has Down
Hmm,
syndrome. My daughter
okay.
does not. And it took forever just to even get her services, even though her diagnosis and her I had all the recommendations and all the paperwork. She kept testing okay when the
Oh,
school would test her, but there were many things beyond just those tests, and they didn't want to hear those things.
right. So that's very key. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because when it comes to being heard, it isn't just about the test scores. It is about behaviors. It is about application. It is about accessibility to materials and being able to share that knowledge so that people understand that you understand or you don't understand. Um, and yeah, it does seem more often than not, at least in my experience, that if the disability is visible, people acknowledge it and tend to listen more than if it's an invisible diagnosis or invisible eligibility for special education.
Right.
So, what was it that you had to do to make it seem for you that you were being heard? Or did you never feel like you were heard when it came to your daughter?
I started asking others to come to the meetings with me. And so even if they didn't speak, I had that emotional support. I had someone there that was taking notes to help me keep track, because being alone in the meeting, I felt very alone.
Yeah.
And just having them there, and then also touching base with other parents who had children with unique needs, and touching base with other educators, and saying, "Hey, this is what I believe would benefit my daughter to help her reach her fullest potential." Because I wasn't wanting special treatment, but I wanted her to have all the tools in her toolbox, much like we've talked about. And she was missing. She didn't even have the toolbox, let alone
Yeah.
the tools. So I was scrambling trying to find it. I was going where I could get education. I was attending seminars, webinars, just trying to find to help her. And I felt that to be heard, I had to be smarter than everyone else at the table.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of pressure.
Just a little bit.
I mean, it's daunting enough, I think, to be the parent coming into those meetings and feeling like you're not looked at as an equal member to begin with. And now you're saying you had to be not an equal member, you needed to be more than an equal member for them to even
Yes.
pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry about that. And Alex says, and repetition also. Yeah, just having things repeatedly said to you and by you to the team.
I mean, things didn't change with my daughter. They just got worse. Well, I mean, they did change. They got worse.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Prior to her being able to get the services she needed.
Right. So I'm going to type some stuff here because I'm playing today.
Are you playing? Okay, you can play.
Uh-huh.
I already played. So I don't know.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Yeah. So those are just a couple of ways that you said you had done in order to help you feel like your voice was getting heard. But you also said, well, I guess educate yourself. That kind of covered all those, reading all that stuff, looking up all that stuff.
But that I'm no different than any other parent of a child with special unique needs, because we are constantly that it becomes our full-time job, is determining from the moment we realize they have those unique needs, we are filling our toolbox so that we can fight every battle, or hope to fight every battle that's coming our direction.
You know, I want you to say that again, for anybody who is watching that is not a parent of a child with a disability, special need, unique need, differently abled, accessibility differences, whatever the terminology is today for you specifically, because I think that is so incredibly profound and something that those of us who aren't raising a child with the types of abilities that your children have any idea about.
So from the moment I knew with my son, which was prior to his birth, there was a possibility that he would be born with Down syndrome, I started the education process of how to help him reach his fullest potential. And then once I realized my daughter also had those unique needs, I've been educating myself. I've been looking up things. I've been following this person who has a child who has this need. I've I don't know. You have to keep looking and keep fighting and keep building that toolbox so that you have all you need, or you hope you have all you need to fight whatever battle to help your child get all the services they need.
Yeah, because unfortunately, especially in your son's situation, like you said, you knew there was a chance before he was even born that he would be born with Down syndrome. And so I think, and I don't remember your story exactly. When you were told that information, were you also given the option to terminate the pregnancy?
Well, actually, it was all the way back when they do that triple screening, not
Uh-huh.
the amniocentesis, and I didn't even know that was an option not to have it done. I was just told I had to have it done, and then it came back irregular, and then they wanted to do the amniocentesis to verify it. And my question to them was, well, can you change it? Can you fix it? What good does doing this? Well, you'll know for sure if he has Down syndrome or not. I said, well, I'm keeping him either way. So, but I was heavily pressured even at that point in life to have that amnio and then probably make a decision.
Right. And so from the moment almost when you're given that information, you have to defend keeping the child and
Yeah.
continuing with the pregnancy. And so from that point forward, you are in a defensive mode. And if
Yep.
and if you know there's a family that they didn't know during pregnancy, and they did find out at birth, it's kind of the same thing from my understanding is, like Kathleen in my book was born with a cleft palate and a cleft lip. And when she was born, the delivery room went silent. Nobody said anything to her mom because they were stunned. And, that's not what they were expecting. And then that she was born, with basically a big hole in her face. And then, it was when she got the diagnosis that was a translocation of 7 and 8, the 7th and 8th genes or something. Then the doctor said to her, well, aren't you glad it's not Down syndrome? Because that's what Cindy had thought it was leading up to that point, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm just sad you're talking to me at all. And from that point forward, she was always having to defend Kathleen and protect Kathleen from people's stares. And it's when you all come into the school systems, and then the school system is making you prove, just like you're talking about with your daughter, over and over and over and over again, mm-hmm. that your child needs the services that they need. Schools aren't realizing how much energy has already been poured into the child and trying to get the child everything that they are entitled to.
It minimizes the parents' skill set. It minimizes all they've been through, all they've done to educate themselves to help their children reach where they are, even to that point. And it says, yeah, you may be the parent, but we're the educators, and we know what better for your child.
Yeah.
This is our field, so step back and let us do our job.
Yeah. And I really appreciate what Alex said, but this isn't easy to stand firm. Because again, if there's anybody here who is not familiar with the special education process, when you go into an IEP meeting, it's you representing your part of the team. And then the rest of the part of the team can be anywhere from 3 to 20 people. And so I said from this many to this many.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you having to talk to all of those people is daunting enough, but then it's not easy when you are trying to get a point across and they don't give you the time of day or any credence into your authority on it. Mm-hmm. So I agree with standing firm, but it's certainly not an easy thing to do. So this is a friend of my mom's, and she had this little girl late in life. And then,
so she had to advocate even then.
Yep.
And I think the theme I'm seeing here, go ahead and say that.
So Alex put this in when I was talking about how difficult it is to stand firm against everyone, or not against them, but in the midst of them. And yeah, it's not at all easy, but it is so important.
Yeah. I think what's so key here is building your team.
Mm-hmm.
Because without a support network, you can't do it. And you're not expected to do it alone. So often, as a parent of a child with unique needs, society makes you feel like it's your fault. Somehow you're to blame. Even if there's no possible way you're to blame. Society will make you feel that way. Or just human nature, we tend to blame ourselves. There's something we could have done, or we didn't take them to this therapy session, so they missed out, so they didn't, all these things. Well, is to realize that you cannot do it alone. If you have a husband, wife, partner, even just as parents, you can't do it alone. You need to reach out, and it's okay to. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're weak. To reach out, to build that teamwork. Once you're in the education system, having somebody like you, Shelley, an IEP consultant, having somebody that understands that is so key. Prior to that, having networking, getting in support groups of people that have kids like yours, or just kids who have unique needs, to realize that the battle that you're fighting, someone else has already fought or is fighting at the same time, or potentially you have gone through it and you can help someone that is just now entering that battle. So it's important to realize that you are valuable, you matter, and you need the help, and it's okay.
Yeah. So I was talking to someone who lives in New York earlier today, and she went through the Master IEP Coach Mentorship at the same time that I went through it, and we've connected and just really had a good bond. And so we always kind of talk to each other about maybe some business strategies and whatnot. And so she was asking me if I was connected to any SEPTAs out here, and I said, I don't know what that is. And she said, it's the Special Education Parent Teacher. What's the A stand for?
Association.
Parent Teacher Association. Yes, thank you. And I said, we don't have those here. And I said, even our schools, a lot of them don't even have a PTA anymore. They might have a booster club, or they might have, something else, something named a little bit differently. But so my point to that is there are so many places where it's difficult to find others that are going through what you're going through, because I've been told that families with special needs they feel like they're on an island.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it is something that I'm thankful for Facebook and social media for that reason, because at least people can find a tribe online, but
Right.
it would be better if they could have that group of like-minded people physically near them. But, it's just the way of where we are, specifically in rural America, that's not very easily done. But apparently, at least in some parts of the country, there is a separate organization within school districts. And
Wow.
hopefully they're helping their parents be heard and seen and comforted.
That's neat. I think back to when Bubby was born, there was a Down syndrome group in the next bigger town over, and those kids, now are not babies; they're much older. But I remember thinking there were some that had a cardiac open heart surgery because they had holes in their hearts. So, and I'm thankful he didn't have those kind of physical things when he was first born. But I, Allie actually plays basketball with one of the girls that was in that support group now.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting just to listen to the parent talk about the journey they went, and because that group didn't keep meeting, as the kids got older, we got pulled apart. So I'm saddened by that, because I think we could have supported each other.
Yeah.
But just to listen to the things they're going through and the things that I'm going through, and they're still similar, and we don't have that support we could have had with each other, because it's so hard. You're torn in so many directions. Parents of neurotypical kids, they get pulled in directions of which select team and which extracurricular activity. Parents of those with unique needs get pulled into, well, which medical appointment, therapy appointment, and which school appointment are we going to try to manage? And oh, yes, and we also have to figure out how to feed ourselves to make sure they get the nutrition. Those are the battles and what you get pulled in. So it's not that we don't want to do what everybody else is doing, but we just don't have enough resources.
Right. And I want to weigh in with a slightly different opinion than what you just shared of yours, is that you said parents of neurotypicals get pulled, which sports team to be on, which extracurricular activity. Those are choices that they're making. You, as you stated a little bit further, it's not your choice. And I bring that out because if there happen to be any educators watching, when you go sit at the IEP table for those meetings, you chose to be there. You chose to be a teacher. You chose to be an administrator. You chose to be a related service provider.
Mm-hmm.
The parent didn't choose. The parent is there because their child needs a voice and their child needs somebody to be there for them.
That's true. But you know what I want to say? Because as we've sat and talked, it sounded kind of like doom and gloom this whole time. But there's so much joy, there's so much pleasure, there's so many accomplishments, there's so many triumphs that we get that neurotypical parents don't get. We get to treasure the little things, whereas so often they're missed by a neurotypical parent because they just assume it's going to happen. Whereas we never assume anything. We're just grateful with the little things that do happen.
Right. That's a good
So,
point.
so I don't want you to think that I'm bemoaning the fact that I'm a parent of a couple of kiddos who have some unique needs, because I wouldn't trade it for the world. They're my pride, they're my joy, and they're my life. They're my very reason why I keep plugging along. So
Right.
there's no um, regret in the fact that I had either of my children. I just wish it would be easier for them.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right. And that's, I mean, I don't, I mean, I suppose if somebody's watching for the very first time, maybe they would have gotten that impression. Um, and maybe because of how God has designed me, that my passion is people who are learning differently than every, their neighbor next door. I don't take what you were saying as that. However, again, referring back to my book, I know that that is a fear that many parents who have children like your kiddos and the kiddos in the book have, because they do feel, again, you're having to defend the fact that your child is alive. And so I think it stinks that you have that feeling where you don't think you can talk about the negatives because you're worried that that's all other people will focus on. I mean, parents of neurotypicals sit and complain about their kids.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You at a family gathering, at a restaurant, at a parent teacher conference. I mean, parents still want different things for their kids in some ways, and they're frustrated by behaviors or their choices that the child is making or whatever. So I just wish it was more, I don't know if it's allowable or more, maybe it's a more forgiving setting where somebody talking about their child who is neurodiverse can also talk about the negatives and not make it seem like everything about my child's life is negative. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does. I think I'm going to have to go for just a second. Can you talk?
Okay. Sure. So one of the things when Fran and I were talking, and I don't know how many people that are watching or watching in the replay, I know the ones that have commented don't have a child in the school systems right now, but for anybody who's watching who may have, one of the best ways to have your voice heard at the IEP meeting is to write a parent input statement. Within the IEP, there is a section where you are to be asked at the meeting, what are your concerns? What are your worries? What is your input? And it's not always called necessarily parent input. It might say parent concerns. It might say, is my internet going out? Because I'm getting a signal that it's not as strong.
You're kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, that's weird. It says my connection is unstable. Well, we'll keep going and see. You may have to talk by yourself for a while. So the parent input statement is a great way for you to get your thoughts out on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Do it ahead of time so that you can think without being emotional, because when you're in those meetings, they're emotional.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, these meetings are to talk about how we're going to shore up things for your child, and we don't necessarily focus on all the positives. So it gets to be very emotional. And even if most everything in the meeting is positive, it's still emotional because it's still talking about your child. So
Mm-hmm.
writing those thoughts down, getting them into the rest of the team even before the meeting so that they have a chance to see where you're coming from
Mm-hmm.
is another reason for submitting it early. And that's not something that I never necessarily called it that, and I didn't probably even put it in the IEP as much as I should have when I taught. But I always reached out to my parents before the annual review and said, what do you want for your child next year? What kinds of things should we be working on? These are the kinds of things I was thinking. What are you thinking?
Okay.
Because we didn't always see the same perspective of the child. When a child's at school, they behave one way. When they're at home, they often behave a different way. And so, um, being able to have that communication with them ahead of time. But I didn't necessarily put it word for word in that parent input section. And a lot of times I've seen IEPs as I'm reviewing them or as I meet with clients now that say parent has no concerns or no concerns noted. You have concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever you were talking to at the meeting just didn't hear them, like we talked about. So Alex says, I believe Fran succeeded in the areas she did because she was consistent and stood firm in what she wanted despite the opposition. It was a hard and a struggle, but unfortunately it was what had to be done. You need to fight for your rights. Sorry, who is it? Who is it? It's the song, You Have to Fight for Your Right to Party. That's what came to my mind when I was reading that sentence.
Uh, Thank you, Alex. Yeah, um that is, it's true. You have to, and I appreciate your acknowledging that. I wanted to touch base before I got distracted about your parent input. You had suggested me writing out that, and so I did that, and it, more than just writing it out for them, it helped me realize what was important for my daughter. It helped me summarize, and I actually wrote something, and it sticks with me now. Even the IEP that just happened was, we failed my daughter. I said, as an IEP team, as an educational team, we failed my daughter, and I included myself in that as well. And I know that's probably pretty harsh to say, and probably came across really strongly, but I thought on it, I prayed about it long and hard prior to, and then once I printed it, it was there, and it couldn't come back for the meeting because it was important that it was said, I felt like. And then but I didn't leave it at, we failed my daughter. I said why, and then I said, this is what I think we can do to help her with the time we have left.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of lay the blame at everybody and just leave it there, but it was building the rest of the plan from that point
Right.
forward.
Yeah. And that's, you know, again, that's a great way, a great communication because sometimes teachers don't have the ability to see things the same way because they've only done them a certain way for so long
Hmm.
that to see anything outside of that, they need someone else to share a different perspective with them. And also okay, great, now this parent has laid this blame at my feet. Now I'm feeling very defensive. I'm feeling bad
Mm.
about myself. My brain isn't going to be able to come up with a solution right now. And so, again, because you were able to do that when it wasn't an emotional time, or like you said, you had thought about it and prayed about it, you didn't just write it down and then walk away. It did, sounds like it took some time.
Yes, it did. It was over a series of a church day to a church day from the time that you mentioned it to the time that we had the IEP and I had the final draft. Sorry, Cooper's apparently, there's a lot of excitement going on.
Yeah, he looks like he's very intently looking at the rest of the house as to whatever he thinks is going on and making sure, I guess, that he's not missing anything or that you're safe.
People are coming and going, so.
You have a busy place today, but that's okay.
Yeah.
If we need to stop early so that you can go take care of anything, that's certainly something we can do.
Okay. I think we're okay, but
okay.
But I think we're in a good spot actually too. I don't know. Was there more you wanted to talk about?
Not that we have to. No, I was just thinking of how I kind of hinted at it a few minutes ago about differently abled, accessibility differences, special needs. Because while this isn't necessarily a struggle that I'm going through, today is the first day of April. And April has been deemed Autism Acceptance and Autism Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Within the community of
and
those
it's blue,
who
just like our screen.
Well, it depends. Because I've seen groups that they don't want all the different colors. They want yellow, or they want, I actually saw one. Let's see if I can find it back.
Yes.
But yeah, just those different colors, the different the different, what am I trying to say? Not schemes, the different themes.
The different themes, the different graphics that are used. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have autism, I think what you're saying is person first language versus diagnosis.
Well, yes, but no. There are organizations, and like I have a friend who has autism, and she refers to herself as an autistic person. Because that's, so kind of where I'm going is, and of course that post isn't going to come up quickly, but where I was going was being heard even within your own community of like people. I was going to say like-minded, but then I was like, well, are they really like-minded if they have different opinions on how you should?
My daughter prefers to be called a young lady, a woman who happens to have autism. She goes, why would I say I have autism? I'm an autistic woman. I said, well, some people say that. I was just curious what you would prefer how you would prefer. Well, Mom, aren't I a woman? Well, yeah, I tend to think of you. Well, I tend to think of you as a young lady and not as a woman yet. But she goes, well, I'm a woman. I said, okay, so you want to be called a woman? Yes, Mom. And so I've checked with my daughter.
Yep. And I think that's the important part. And someone that I'm still scrolling, and of course, later I'll turn my phone on and it'll be the first thing that'll pop up, but because I want to find out.
Why didn't you search that person?
Because I don't remember who posted it.
Oh, okay.
It was like, it was an organization, and then somebody shared it, but I don't even remember who shared it because I just quickly saw it. But anyway, it was the infinity sign, not the puzzle piece. And there was a gold one. And then there was another one and I don't remember the colors in the second one, but I remember seeing a post too. And again, I don't remember the organization that shared it. That's the bad part about promoting my business on Facebook, is I'm in all these different groups and with all these different people. And so I don't always pay attention to where information is coming from in my feed. But it talked about the whole, like, why people with autism don't want the puzzle pieces and what the puzzle pieces all mean and why they
originally meant. Yeah.
Yeah. And why they want the infinity sign and maybe the gold infinity, maybe one means acceptance and one means awareness. But even being heard within that, like I said, that group of people, and the idea of that, and I don't remember who I was talking to the other day about it, was it was my guest on hashtag No Limits, Rachel Whitaker of Bra Easy, and she's in Australia, and she says they have the same types of discussions there. And her daughter is 22, and so she's done the same thing that you've done with Allie, and just asked her, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what would you prefer? And what we decided and discussed was that you say what you are comfortable with, and if
Mm-hmm.
somebody is uncomfortable with what you say and they tell you that they're uncomfortable with how you're saying, then you change it if it's not a big deal to you. But if it is a big deal to you, if you are the person with autism and somebody tells you, or whatever your disability or your eligibility for special education would be, if you're comfortable with the term and you don't have a problem with the term, then use the term that you've been using. And, but be respectful of the others who
But
use
the problem is how can you be respectful when the others aren't respectful with it?
right.
It's called autistic truth.
Oh, did you find it?
That do you want me to share it?
If you want to, sure.
I'm trying to get there, sorry.
No, you're okay. Yeah, that looks pretty similar to what I saw. Oh, so it is the rainbow. Okay.
It's either or, the rainbow or a gold.
Okay.
So I'll just post the link in the comments.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Yep. That's wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, we kind of focused on autism because it's April and it's the month that, but had we been in March, we might have been talking about Down syndrome and whether or not it's differently abled, accessibly able, accessibility differences, learns differently, different learners, specific learning disability. I mean, right. I think the only term that is accepted as being unwanted across the board is the word retarded.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be a remnant that doesn't have a problem with that word, but I feel for the most part that's one that everybody is against.
Yeah, I believe so. There's even a huge movement stop in the word, stop the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So I think, what I can't hear you is, with regards to that, is to be respectful and to try to be respectful to others, even if their opinion is different. And if you feel very strongly about, if for example, autism, again, because it's Autism Awareness Month, but, if you feel very strongly one way or the other, ask the person whose opinion is different than yours if you can explain why your opinion is the way it is. Some people don't want to hear it, and so explaining it would do no good, and it might cause more of a rift. But if the person is willing to hear why a particular phrasing offends them, I think I'm just the kind of person who likes a lot of information and likes to understand how people got to where they are.
Okay. Yeah.
But maybe that's just me.
I think because you don't have a personal bone in the fight, or not the fight, in the party. I don't know, in the recipe.
A dog in the fight. Yeah.
Dog in fight. Yeah. But I think it's interesting, even within the community, if you have a personal, if you are personally involved in it, and when you're told you can't say something, it kind of throws you for a loop. And
Hmm.
that's what I've encountered with some people in some
Yeah.
conversations. Oh, I have a cat.
Yeah. I saw her jump over the gate.
Yeah. So, but it makes it hard to see when I have a cat.
Because she puts her tail in front of the camera.
Well, her whole body. Anyway, sorry, but so it's a struggle for me personally when there are people telling me I can't refer to my daughter or to myself in a
Right.
certain way, and I'm like, "Hello, it's me. Why can't I refer to myself?" Well, you have no right. Well, yes, I do. I do have a right just as much as you have a right. So within, I guess why I'm sharing this is within the community of differences, there's lots of differences.
Right. And you and I have talked about this before, that it's really difficult to offend me. And I think part of that is because I am so curious and I understand that behaviors are communication. And so when somebody, and I'm not perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination. If somebody yelled at me and said, "Stop referring to yourself as a redhead," I'd be like, "I can do what I want."
Uh-huh.
Because I definitely do not like to be told no, that I cannot do something or that I won't be able to do something. That is for certain, and that comes from my mom. She has the same trait. Um, but hopefully, if the person were to say to me, "Well, I don't want you to refer to yourself as a redhead because it's offensive to me as a, I don't know, ginger," if that would be the term that they would use, and then, explain why. Because I think, like the word retarded, I think that there were valid and are valid
Hmm.
reasons not to use that word. And it's not just within the disability community. I mean, there's a word in a certain race that people within that race can use to refer to one another, but those who are not in that race cannot use that word.
Hmm.
So it,
Right.
it isn't just within the disabilities community that this
Right.
happens. Um, but, it does go back to, well, how can I be heard then?
Hmm.
Because
Right.
just like your voice is valid and important and should be heard, so is mine.
Hmm. Sorry, he's
Not happy
climbing.
about Emmy?
No, I think it's Yanko's out there, and
Oh.
he's trying to figure out if Yanko's getting something.
Oh. Yeah, because he probably doesn't understand that the gate is up and Yanko can't come to you now, but
Hmm.
because the gate wasn't up
No,
earlier.
Yanko was on an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another one within the disabilities. Crippled is offensive to people. Handicapped. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of words that,
Have you ever heard of handicap parking?
yeah,
I mean, how often do we say that?
right.
I have my handicap placard.
Hmm. Yeah. And I don't know how it works, but because I never did quite understand the math behind it. But when you bowl or when you play golf, I think you can have a handicap.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's been terms that have been, I don't know who had that term first, if it was in the sports world or in the disabilities world.
Right. Cooper, stop. He's climbing,
He's wanting to go somewhere.
apparently.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, at the IEP table, I have good advice on how to be heard. Outside of that, you're more of the expert than I am.
No, because I feel like Man of La Mancha tilting windmills. Uh, you can't win. I have discovered you can't change a person's opinion in social media. So
Well, this is true.
so occasionally, if I feel strongly about something, I may voice my opinion and then realize that it's probably not going to change anything, but I've shared my thought process, and then I move on. If I
Yeah.
feel like there's an inkling, a chance of changing it.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like that, Alex. Respect each other's uniqueness.
Yep. Because every one of us, it sounds funny to say everyone is unique because everyone and unique shouldn't be in the same sentence, but it's true. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what the unique part of someone is. Every single person is unique.
I have a friend, her daughter was her Girl Scout leader, and we were asking the girls to describe themselves. She goes, I'm unique. And she has kept that choice to describe herself, or even now she's in college and she'll still remind me, or we'll say it, you're unique. And
Mhm.
and it's true. But it's true for each of us. You're right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. How we refer to ourselves. I think again, that goes back to what we were talking about. If there's a part of me that 100% wants to say you should be able to refer to yourself as you want to. But then there's a tiny part of me that says, but if the way you're referring to yourself is derogatory toward a whole group of people, then maybe you don't have that right. But I don't know. And I mean, because
Yeah.
who determines that it's derogatory? And in what form is it then there's my whole the investigative. Well, here's when I turn into a toddler again. Why
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing how you get heard. How do you get heard in a world where you have to be loud?
Mm-hmm. So when you hear what, I can't hear you, what is your response to that person when they don't feel heard? How how are you as an individual going to help them be heard? I think that's the question now.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think trying to Yep, you're right, Alex. It's a fine line. I think that saying that when you point your finger at somebody else, you have all these fingers pointing back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is apropos here, that you have to look at yourself and determine why you don't want to hear what someone else has to say, or why what someone else is saying is so offensive, or why you don't value what the other person has to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're the person not being heard, at the very bottom foundation is you might not get yourself heard by some people, because some people just will never, you won't change them. But
And how are you okay being unheard?
right. Yeah. You just may have to accept that with that person, if it's a policy that you're fighting against, if it's a person that you're advocating for, and you have people who aren't listening to you, and you can find other people to help you and listen to you, then try that avenue maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's
are
good.
your thoughts?
You give it your best, know that you did, and then move on. Because it's not worth beating your head against a wall over something that's not going to change. So move forward into an area that you can help implement change. And good.
Yep, that's good too.
That's my thought process on it.
Sounds like a good thought process to me.
My cat is like right in front of the screen. I can't see it.
Oh, well,
She's
all I
not
can see is
blocking
Cooper.
it. Oh, okay.
I mean, I can see you, but I can't see Emmy. I can only see Cooper.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Emmy. She stood up now.
Yeah. Well, she just was closer. It's
She's
okay.
trying to be heard. She wants your
She
attention.
is. She is wanting. She's not fond of Yanko, so she's
Oh,
glad to be able to have jumped over because Yanko
yeah.
wants to play and she's not been around big dogs.
Oh, gotcha. Understood.
And Yanko's a big dog now. I will
Yeah,
not try to pick him up now.
that's good. You probably shouldn't have been trying to pick him up a few weeks ago already, but at least now you know that you are. My daughter's leaving. I told her she had to, when she was going to leave, she would have to come down and say goodbye to me and then say hi
Bye,
to
daughter.
everybody that was watching. But she wouldn't come all the way over here. So
Got it.
she had a change in her plans for the weekend, and so she didn't think she was going to be leaving for the weekend until tomorrow, and then that changed to how she has to leave today instead. So
Okay. I'm leaving in the morning.
Yes, you are. To go on a missions trip, right?
Yes. So
Awesome.
I think we'll be able to meet the following time, but not the following.
Okay. Will you be
'Cause I'll
traveling
be on the
back on
road.
second? Yeah. Okay. All right.
As
Well,
long as there's internet access there. I have no idea. This is a new experience.
Okay. Cool.
I'm excited.
Good. It
I
sounds
just
like
have to watch out for gators, apparently.
And if it gets down to below a certain temperature, falling iguanas.
Oh, okay. Well, when I
Did
went
you know they do
camping,
that?
it got very cold.
Yeah.
No, I've heard of that, I think, but I've never seen falling iguanas. So,
Yeah. I haven't either, but yes, I've heard of a few
but
times
it's
when it's
supposed to be very warm, so I don't think I'm going to have that problem.
Okay, good. And are you sleeping indoors or outdoors?
Indoors, because they wouldn't let me because of the alligators. There's a pond that has alligators in it, and
Oh,
apparently tent camping and being in a wheelchair is not conducive to being safe around alligators.
okay. I mean, it makes sense, but I can't say I've ever really thought about it.
I hadn't either, and I was like, well, I was going to save space and stay in a tent, and I like tent camping, but other people have more wisdom in that area because
Right?
they're familiar with that land and the animals that are part of that land.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like snakes, but I've never had to deal with alligators, so I'm sure I wouldn't like them either. But yeah, knowing what is in your element is very important.
Yeah, I think we could use that with lots of things. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, it's time, my friend.
Oh, wow. We made it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I'm planning on having fun and wanting to serve the Lord. Good. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. And if you guys have anything that you would like us to discuss, as we've multiple times said, we're sometimes talking about it right before we come on air, whatever topic we think we're going to try to stay on. And then we have those times where we don't have a topic and we just are all over the place. But I think today we did okay.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, my friend, and be safe. And hopefully we'll see you next week, and then we'll be off in 2 weeks.
Yep. And remember, you're not alone, no matter what.
Yep. Amen to that. All right.